All right, hello IED. In this two videos, what we're going to be doing is creating the Archimedes Trammel toy. I'm giving you all the pieces, and you should have it downloaded in here. But our end result is going to look something like this. This is Archimedes Do Nothing or Trammel toy. So let's go ahead and get started on this. First thing we're going to do in the first video here is we're going to bring parts in. This whole project, it's about doing joints, as-built joints, creating regular joints, and creating motion joints. We're doing all three in this thing. So with that said, let's create a new file. And first thing we're going to do is save this thing. I'm going to call this thing Trammel Toy Video. That'll work. It's going to save it. Upload in progress. Thank you. And it looks like we're saving here. First piece we're going to bring in on the left here is the base bottom. It's going to bring it in. It's going to drop it right in place for me. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm happy with its location because it's just somewhere in space. And I'm going to right click on base bottom here and then come up to ground. And what this is doing is locking this piece in place. It cannot move. If I unground it or take this little pin out, then it will be movable again. With that said, let's go ahead and bring in the base top. And when they built this thing, they built these things right where they needed to be, which is really nice because now I don't have to move it. I can say okay, and this piece is sitting here. If I wanted to, I can move this thing around. I'm going to Control Z that, put it back in place, because I want to lock this thing right where it sits. To do that, under Assemble, you want to do an as-built joint or Shift J. It brings up the as-built joint window here, and I'm going to select my two components that are sitting exactly how I want them. I'm going to leave my motion as rigid. If you want to see something real cool, you hit the play button and bounce it around, kind of fun, and say okay. At this point, they are now jointed together. The bottom base is grounded, so it cannot move. The top base cannot move because I have that rigid joint to the bottom base that cannot move. So I'm good to go there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring in the corners. I have a lower left corner. I'm just going to bring them all in at the moment. Okay, I have a lower right. Okay, scroll down to the bottom. I have an upper left and an upper right. Upper left, okay, and upper right. Okay, so those are the four corners that are in there. Before I get too far, I like to name the joints. So I'm just going to come in here, change my rigid one to top base to bottom base. That'll work. So now my joints that joint is named. And I don't like this big yellow box sitting here. So I'm going to come open up each one of these pieces I just brought in and hit the eyeball on construction. You're going to see it getting lighter. And that's just getting rid of that construction plane that I can see. So there, construction, and construction. Very good. So now I have these in. I'm going to go ahead and do my as-built joint. Again, assemble, as-built joint. This one says my upper right, so I'm going to do my upper right to my top base. Leave it as rigid. Say OK. See, now it says rigid 2. I'm just going to change this one to UR to TB. That'll be upper right to top base. I will understand that. Shift J, that's the same thing. That's the as-built joint. My upper left to the top base. So UL to TB. My lower right, Shift J again. Here to there. Okay. LR to TB. And my lower left, so Shift J. Yellow block to the top base. Okay. UL to TB. There we go. And now these are all locked in place. They cannot move because my bottom base is grounded, and then each one of these are joined together. So I'm happy with that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and bring in the hardware or some of the hardware for this. So for that, let's go ahead and create a new component. And I'm going to name this one hardware. Very good. You're going to see I wireframe down in my image. That's because I'm highlighted it on my hardware. And I am going to bring in this bolt. This is the A199 bolt. I'm happy with where that's at. Sure. Okay. And I now have my one bolt in there. I know for the top of this thing, I am going to need 4 of these. So I'm going to do a modify move or M key. Make sure my move objects is component. Select the bolt. Go over here to create copy at the bottom. And then just drag one of the arrows over. Then it'll make a copy of this thing. And do that 2 more times, please. There. Create copy. Okay. Oops, I think I put that right in the same spot. One more time. Move. Get my component. Create copy. Bring it out. There we go. All right. I have those. Let me go ahead, since I'm already on this window, I'm going to bring in the nuts as well. So I'll drag one of those in. See where it puts it. A little high. I'm going to bring it out here. Make my life easier. All right. Say OK. Again, I'm going to move component. Let's select this component. Create a copy. I think I'll move this one this way. Say OK. Move. Select the nut. Create copy. Again, to get to the move command, all I'm doing is pressing M. And M one more time. Get a 4th one of these. Create copy. There we go. So I now have the 4 bolts and I have the 4 nuts that are in here that I can now use. Something else you're going to notice where it says hardware here, instead of having the cube, I now have these multiple cubes. And what that's telling me is it's not a single component, but it is a component set. So there's multiple components sitting inside here. When I go to make a schedule or a list of parts, they will then all be added up since I use the move command as opposed to dragging a new one in from the left side browser every time. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and put my focus back on my main part and create regular joints, regular rigid joints. So I'm going to go up here to the joint. It looks like a hinge. If you go under assemble, it's the second one there. It says joint or J. All right, to put these things in place, I'm going to be adjusting for 3 degrees of freedom, up and down, left, right, in and out. Fusion wants to do this all in one shot. So the direction in which you go at your piece actually matters. If you go at upside down, you have to flip it. If you're off to a side, you have to then move things around. So really keep an eye on the direction in which you're going at this. Your component 1 is always what you're moving. The component 2 is where you're moving it to. So I'm going to move this first bolt here. I'm going to get on this face because I want this face right here. I want that touching the face of the countersink so that my bolt looks like it's completely dropped into the hole as far as it'll be able to go. So with my mouse over top of this plane, I'm going to hold down Control, get to the center dot. It's going to wireframe out. And then I can come in here, find that lower part of that countersink, hold down Control, and get the center dot. And you can see it flipped it for me. Mine's rotating, which means my motion needs to be rigid. There, now it's shaking. This thing is locked in place. I'm happy. Very good. So I'm going to do this 3 more times. J for joint. Hit the face, Control, dot. Come over here, zoom in, lower face, Control, click on the dot. It's going to flip it for me. I'm happy. If yours is sitting upright like this, then you probably want it from the same direction, or your flip needs to be flipped. You just do that by right down here on the bottom in the joint panel. Click that spot that says flip. So I'll say okay. A couple other things, so let you know how I'm bouncing around so easily on this. J for joint, top of this, hold down control, hit the center spot. Using the mouse wheel to zoom up and down, pressing the mouse wheel in, I can drag around, zoom back in a little bit. And then if I want to orbit, I hold down the shift key, and while holding the shift key down, I can then hold the middle mouse button down and orbit around. All right, so back to here, control, click. That's where I want it, okay. The last one, J for joint, get on that face, hold down control, center spot, control, center spot. There we go. So those are all in place. Let's go ahead and put the nuts in place. You're going to see again, these are rigid here. I really should have gone through and named these things. This one here is my rigid 6. When I clicked it, I can see it's right here. So I'm going to name these real quick before I get too far out. This is my lower right bottom screw to lower right. There you go. This one here is my upper right or lower right top screw to lower right. This one here is my upper left bottom screw to upper left. And this one is my upper left top screw to upper left. There we go. And it's up to you how you want to name these things. This just makes sense to me. So I'm happy with that. All right, so let's go ahead and put these nuts in. So I'm going to J, get on the face of this one because I want these in the countersinks. Hold down control, hit that center spot. Get to the bottom. These are my countersink holes. Get over top of the lower part where the countersink is. Hold down control, center spot. You're going to see this thing does not line up really nice. It's slightly off. So just take the dot here and, rotate it. I like that. Cool. Say okay. And do the others. So J for joint, face, control, dot. This one, face, control, dot. Rotate it in place. Say okay. J for joint, face, control, center dot. Where are we at? Here we are. Face, control, center dot. Rotate in place. And then J again for joint, top, center dot. And there it is. Face, control, center dot. Rotate that in place. Okay. At this point, I now have the yellow blocks exactly where I want. Nothing is moving. I'll go back through and rename those things in a bit here. But I now have all the yellow blocks with the screws, bolts, and top and bottom base linked in. So only thing left to do before we start putting in our motion joints is to put in our 2 pins. So I'm going to come back to my hardware, highlight it so I can see it. I'm going to bring in a 5mm. There we go. That's a good spot. Okay, press M for move, make a copy of this thing, component, create a copy, arrow it out. Okay, and I'll bring my 6mm in. 6mm just to have a little bit wider diameter. Let's get this one down here. Very good. M for move. Select the component. Create a copy. And get it out of the way. There we go. All right. So I'm going to come back up to my main part here. Dot. And we're going to put these pegs in, and that'll be the end of this video. So, real quick, joint. J for joint. We'll start with our 5mm. I'm going to get this top face that's not beveled. Get on there, hold down Control. Oops. There it is. Hold down Control. Get that center spot. Find the smaller of the 2 holes, which is this. Something's off here. Let's try again. On the face. Hold down Control. Dot. Smaller of the 2 holes. Hold down Control. Dot. You're just going to be standing up like this to flip it over. Just come over here to the joint panel. Click flip. That's good. Rigid joint, that's what I want. And I'll say OK. And I'm going to do this for the other 5mm hole and then the 2 6mm holes. J for joint. Get that edge, Control, hit the dot. On the face, Control, hit the dot. Flip it over. There we go. And then my 6mm ones. J for joint. Get the top one, Control, get the joint, or the center dot. On the face, dot. Flip this thing in. Okay. And one more time, J for joint. Top, Control. Hit that dot. And then on the face here, Control. Hit that dot. And flip. All right, and that's getting me to where I want to end this video. What we have on here is as-built, or we have the 2 as-built joints of the top base and the bottom base. We have the 4 as-built joints for the 4 corners. We have regular rigid joints for the 4 bolts. We have regular rigid joints for the 4 nuts, and then we have them also for the 2 5mm and 2 6mm pins. So this thing is jointed up. The next video we go right into motion joints. Have any questions? Please let me know.